At the time of my diagnosis, I was in business for myself, and my kids were 6 and 9, and so I was doing a lot of parenting and just living my life, not expecting anything unusual to be happening.
I was the mother of 2 small children. My daughter Megan was 13 at the time, and my son Andrew was 9. And I was a busy suburban mom, working part-time and being involved in the children's activities when my life came to a grinding halt.
My life was a little hectic then. I had just left my husband. I have 2 daughters, Jackie and Marisa, and they were 15 and 12 at the time. So it was devastating to them, first of all, that their father and I separated, and second of all, the diagnosis.
I just finally recovered from the death of my mother a couple years earlier, and I felt like I was ready to move on emotionally and just spiritually. I have a wonderful doctor who has helped me with the cysts and who was very sensitive to my concerns about breast cancer because I had a grandmother who died from it. And I always tell people when I speak to them in groups, I love my parents beyond all recognition, but I adored my grandmother. She was just so full of life and just so incredible. And so when I was diagnosed, I thought of my grandmother and said, we're not doing this again. Everybody's going to know about this, and we're going to all take this journey together.
You know, I was naturally alarmed and scared. My children were young, but I felt that I was availing myself of the best medical choices that I could and was hopeful that the treatment would be successful.
This is hard to say. I was very truthful and honest with them. I told them that, you know, I was diagnosed with breast cancer. I told them that I had the best possible doctors and that we were going to get through it.
One of the things for me that was my bargain with God was, you know, I don't care about having this. Just let my kids grow up first. Let me parent them. Let me do everything I want to do with them before I have to deal with this.
My husband, John, is a physician, and he actually got the results of the breast cancer diagnosis before I did. It was always good for me to be able to ask my questions again of him and getting his interpretation of it as a physician. He really took over as being the sport parent and shuttling the kids around a lot more than he ever had before. So it was an interesting time for him also.
During my treatment, my sister Janet and my sister-in-law Rosemary were the most helpful. They helped. They came with me to treatment. They would help with meals if I needed help with meals. If I just needed a time to cry that I didn't want to be with myself, I could drive right over to my sister-in-law's house and just burst out.
I cannot imagine going through treatment without the support I had. My husband, Stuart, is a very even, calm person, and I really relied on him so much during that time because he was unflappable. He just believed from the very beginning that everything was going to be all right. And I would wake him up in the middle of the night sometimes and say, tell me again. And he'd say, everything's going to be all right. And I think he really believed it. And so it helped me to believe it.
My husband, Dale, is my rock. We're going to be celebrating our 39th wedding anniversary this year. He was wonderful. He was just there for me all along. He was just great. And the simplest things, like making food and whatnot. My husband really can't cook, so it's really very interesting. But he attempted and tried. And he was just really sweet. I mean, he was just very supportive, and he was good.
My mother's the quintessential behind-the-scenes player. You know, she kept the house running, the food on the table. She was just there whenever I needed her for whatever I needed her to do. Immediately after the chemo, when I wasn't feeling pretty good, my son would come into the bedroom and rub my bald head. And I remember vividly my daughter Megan, when she started, taking care of herself as a young teenager, making her sandwiches for school. And that's a memory that's always stuck with me, how she really kind of grew up during that time period.
My second diagnosis came again at holiday time, December of 2005. Though I was devastated when I heard the news, it's a little bit easier for me, if you can imagine that. My girls are older now. They're very supportive this time in a different way. They don't come to treatment with me because one has a full-time job, the other one's at Penn State, but they'll call. How are you, Mom? How's this? How's that? Call me, let me know, could you get treatment today? Did you not get treatment today? And that's a bigger help.
And my kids, they were so young. It's incredible to me. I remember in particular, I had a group of friends who were doing a head shaving party for me, and they were gonna turn it into a party, and my kids had been really clear up until that point that they didn't want to see me without hair. And that afternoon, my 6-year-old daughter said to me, I want to be there. And of course, not to be outdone by his sister, Eli then said to me, well, I'm gonna be there too if she's gonna be there. And so they actually cut my hair. The two of them took turns cutting my hair until we got to the shaving part, and saw this thing that could have been really devastating be really nurturing and loving.
Our daughters are Lauren and Nina. Nina's my warrior, princess warrior, and I heard her say to me once, Mommy, are you afraid? Now, I didn't know this was a word that Nina knew. I didn't think it was part of her vocabulary. She's fearless. And I realized, wow, she's really thinking about this. And I said, well, sweetie, I don't want you to be afraid because I intend to be here to dance at your wedding and also to, play around and babysit grandchildren whenever they're produced. So please, I'm not afraid, and I don't want you to be afraid. My youngest daughter, Lauren, is my Joe Friday. She likes facts. Give me the facts. I must have facts. And so I gave her facts, and I want you to have this information, read it, come back, we can talk about it, etc. And she became so good at it, she's a first grade teacher, that whenever someone was diagnosed with breast cancer at her school, she would say, oh, I can get you information, and here's what you need to do, etc., etc. And I was just so proud of her, becoming like a little mini advocate.
Volunteering with Living Beyond Breast Cancer helped me to understand that we can do this. I can do this.
I got involved because I wanted information. I attended one of the first conferences on newly diagnosed women with breast cancer.
Someone, I don't know who it was, sent me the book, Getting Connected. And I thought the photographs in there were wonderful, absolutely wonderful. And I love the fact that these women, in their own words, talked about their experience with breast cancer. And to see a whole group of African American women talking about this, to me, was just wonderful.
I remember walking into the room and realizing, wow, there's a lot of us here. But it was good just to get information, and I felt more in control when I had knowledge.
Jean Sachs called me and asked me if I would create and facilitate the first training for the helpline.
I worked on the patient active guide with Living Beyond Breast Cancer in the wellness community. And we, through dialogue, put together a guide so that women who were re-diagnosed or, their cancer had metastasized could look and see what's out there now, what's happening now.
I just wanted to do something, and then I started going out and speaking to healthcare professionals and social service professionals about obstacles that get in the way of African American women who were diagnosed with breast cancer.
During my year of treatment and actually during diagnosis, I made use of the helpline. So here were these women who had gone through this training, and I was being connected with them and put in touch with them and was hooked on LBBC. I just was so impressed with how the organization managed its philosophy and its programs and worked with women.
In February of 2006, flew to Tanzania and started a 6-day ascent of Mount Kilimanjaro. My goal was to make it to the top carrying my own pack. We summited the mountain in an absolute blinding snowstorm. The head guide said it was the worst weather he had seen in 30 years, but I felt great. All of the money that I raised, 100% of it, went to Living Beyond Breast Cancer.
Not that long ago, probably in the last year or so, Eli, who's going to be 15 next month, said to me that he thought cancer made our family closer. And I asked him what he meant by that, and he said, well, I just think that we appreciate each other more and we don't take each other for granted as much, and I think it just made us a closer family.
We were always encouraged to give back and to publicly serve. I just feel if I can make a difference in the lives of some women by talking to healthcare professionals or talking to the women directly themselves, then I feel like I'm, in a way, venerating my grandmother. And one of the proudest moments I had, it's gonna get me teary, is my brother saying to me when I told him what I was doing, that my grandmother would have been really proud of me.
My daughter Jackie got married in Jamaica in October of 2006. I was going to the wedding, no matter where I was in treatment. I got there, and I was fine. I had a wonderful time. We had a week in Jamaica. It was great. I do not have the metastases in my brain. I just found that out, which was wonderful. I still have it in my liver and my bones, and I believe I will have that for the rest of my life, because right now we don't have a way to conquer that. But I am hopeful that there will come a time.